Bitcoin is looking not super hot right now, to be honest. I mean, yeah, of course, buying opportunities do abound. Bitcoin around $50,000 is a rather juicy buy considering where Bitcoin's going to be in 5-10 years' time. But we want to see those green candles coming back and we want to see that excitement coming back into the market. So in this video, I'll be breaking down the technicals for you, looking at where Bitcoin is right now, the key levels that I'm watching, as well as some important indicators to keep an eye on. In this video, I also have some interesting statistics to share with you about the buying and selling that's been happening over the last few days for Bitcoin. And also, I've got some big Bitcoin ETF news, so make sure to stick around until the end of the video for those important updates. My name's Lark. And every day I make videos talking about cryptocurrency investing. We cover all the hottest, we cover all the latest. So if you want to stay up to date on the markets, get all the latest insights, make sure you subscribe to the channel and also click on the notification bell to know when I put out a new video. So let's go ahead and turn over to the charts. So the Bitcoin US dollar pair on the 1-day charts here. We can see obviously well below the 50-day moving average, which is the purple line on the chart here. Right now, we are testing the 100-day moving average. That is the orange line on the chart here. We can see we have had two candle wicks coming down below the 100-day moving average. Currently, the daily candle is flirting with that daily moving average, that 100-day moving average right now. So I really want to see it closing above again. Let's see what happens. Obviously, we need to wait about 20 hours from the time of recording this video for that daily close. Now, on the assumption that I hope we're going to close above the 100-day moving average here, I have put in a very small long on Bitcoin over on Femex right now. Nothing too crazy. So if the trade does go against me, it's not like I've risked a massive amount, but I think that this could be an interesting point potentially for a reversal to be coming in for Bitcoin. And I've got a big enough stop loss on that I can absorb a bit more lower price action. But I do think, of course, we'll be going back up in the not so distant future for Bitcoin here. But again, I really want to see this as a key level holding. It's interesting, the confluence of the 100-day moving average and the $50,000 price mark, which is obviously a very, very important level for Bitcoin. If we just draw a quick line across here, we can see that $50,000 has been a very important level here, and also acting as resistance here for Bitcoin. So right now, that's what we really want to see. We want to see Bitcoin closing above $50,000 on the daily. That would be a nice line in the sand for us to be drawing. But of course, we have to see how things finish out moving forward. Now, let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit here and take a look at the weekly charts, because I want to draw your attention to the MACD. So the MACD on the weekly has just put in a bearish cross. Now, I think it's really, really important to point out here, this has not closed. There's about 20 hours left to go before this closes. So if Bitcoin can, for example, get up back to like $51,000 for the weekly close, then the MACD will not close the bearish cross on this week's chart. Now, if it does close the bearish cross on this week's chart, does that mean that the bull run's over? It's all done, pack your bags, go home, all that kind of stuff that you'll hear from some of the bearish people out there, the bearish traders, the bearish analysts. No, I do not believe that to be the case, because a bearish crossover on the weekly for the MACD, that doesn't indicate that a bear market is coming. It does indicate that if we do, of course, get the confirmation, it does indicate that we could be entering into a bearish trend short term, but it doesn't mean the end of the bull run. Now, there's precedent for this, as usual. If we go back here and have a look at 2017, see what was happening back then. Did we get any bearish crossovers during that time? Well, here's one right here, 27 March 2017. We did have this little situation where we had a pretty big drop in the price of Bitcoin. So we actually saw Bitcoin coming down by 35%, not so far off from our current predicament. And of course, we got a small, very small red bit on the histogram here. So that was just a very, very small bearish crossover before, of course, Bitcoin then raged higher, continuing up and up and up and up and up for months on end. We can also see two situations here where Bitcoin got very, very close to hitting crossovers after massive run-ups here and again here. So a bearish crossover is not in of itself a death knell for Bitcoin. It's not saying it's all over now. It's just that we might be cooling down quite substantially if we do get that. But in all likelihood, as happened in 2017, it will probably be a quite short-lived event. And this is all really just a cooling down for Bitcoin in general, because you have to remember, we've just had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight green monthly candles for Bitcoin. And if you actually look at the monthly MACD for Bitcoin, this is still very, very, very bullish right now. So there's nothing to worry about when we look at the monthly charts here for Bitcoin on the MACD. And it was basically just time for the markets to cool off a little bit. A 7th green candle for Bitcoin. I mean, hey, there's still a week to go. Anything could happen in that time. We could see a pretty big reversal coming in. We could see Bitcoin closing the monthly candle in the green, right? Let's not count our chickens before they hatch. But a red candle right now, it would make sense. It would be normal. It would be healthy. And again, if we look at previous historical precedences, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, continuation of the bull run, 1, 2, 3, 4, continuation of the bull run. This stuff happens. It's nothing to worry about. So we look at, again, the even higher time frames beyond the weekly, nothing to worry about. And even that weekly MACD bearish cross that we could potentially be getting on the weekly close tomorrow, that in itself is not an end to the bull run or anything like this. It could just be a short-term correction, likely because we are still in a bull market, not going to be lasting massively long, probably a few days, a week or two at the most, because as I keep mentioning, if we take back to the daily, our average time during a bearish correction during a bull market where we go under the 50-day moving average is around 12 days. Now in 2017, the shortest was like 7 days, the longest was like 17 days. Right now, we're just about a week into this here, so we could still have a week or so, maybe even 2 weeks more of this kind of not so awesome price action with Bitcoin struggling. In fact, if we want to take a look at the MACD on the daily, we're probably actually getting pretty close to the point here where we'll start seeing a reversal coming in for that. Now, it's still going down right now, but a reversal coming in soon would not surprise me. So again, I'm not bearish on this market. This is a bull market. This is one of our first major corrections during that bull market. It's the first time during the 2021 bull market that the price has even gone below the 50-day moving average. It happened 4 or 5 times in 2017, and the bull market did not end during any of those periods. And just as a bit of a reminder, the Wolf of Wall Street's Scott Melker, he said this is the 4th time that Bitcoin has died or has topped, and that the bear market has started in 2021 alone. So you can see here he's marked out some. Every time that this has happened on the charts here, you will see this panic coming out. Every time there's a 20 to 30% correction for Bitcoin, every single one of these, it's dead, it's the top, etc., etc. In 2021, again, this has happened 4 times already just this freaking year. So every time that's happened, it's been wrong, and it will be wrong this time. So the people who are saying Bitcoin's dead, the top is in, they're not paying attention to the bigger picture of what's actually happening in this market. By the way, if you want to buy yourself some Bitcoin, maybe some Ethereum, some Polkadot, some Elrond, any of the other hot altcoins, you need to get yourself a BINANCE account. It is the #1 cryptocurrency exchange, an insane amount of cryptocurrencies, huge amount of fiat currencies supported as well. Use the link down below in the description to start your account. You'll get 10% off of your fees and up to $700 in bonuses. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what's been going on with the in and out flows of exchanges over the last couple of days. I find this data is always just super interesting and really telling of what's actually going on in the market, what the money is actually doing. So we can see here, this is Bitcoin net transfer volume to and from exchanges. We can see just here, we had our second biggest spike in inflows to exchanges since March 2020 when we had the famous mega crash for the crypto markets. Now, what this says to me, we had an incredible amount of sellers. So as the price started going down, selling pressure stepped up like crazy. So we have a lot of new people who have come in recently, bought Bitcoin over $60,000, and they're now panic selling it around $50,000. This is not how winning is done. But we can see the panic that has been spreading through the markets right now. In fact, the fear and greed index has reached the same kind of lows that we haven't seen since, again, the March 2020 crash, which is irrational fear, if you ask me, because most of the indicators for the market are still showing that we are well and truly within a bull market. This is just a correction within a bull market, a short-term bearish trend that could last a few days to a couple of weeks, not the end of the bull market itself. This kind of panic selling is quite indicative of that, if you ask me. Now, what's also interesting is that $2.37 billion worth of USDT were deposited onto exchanges yesterday. That's second only to February, just before Tesla's Bitcoin announcement came out. So the dip is being bought quite hard. You can see here that is a big, big spike in dollar transfers. So what that means, a lot of people deposited a lot of money onto exchanges and they're buying the dip. So we saw these massive Bitcoin transfers coming in, all these people panic selling their Bitcoin. On the other end of the trade, we had billions of dollars coming in, panic buying the dip. This happens every single time there's a big dip. The Bitcoin is transferred from the impatient, from the weak hands, over to the patient, diamond-handed hodlers. Keeps repeating in the market. So I feel like a broken record talking about this stuff, but this is what keeps happening. You need to get yourself in tune with these cycles and learn about buying the dips when they come, because this is what the big money's all doing. The short-termers, the tourists, they're panic selling their Bitcoin at the first sign of trouble, 5-10% drop. They sell all their Bitcoin, run away, call it a scam. Meanwhile, the whales come in, they're buying billions worth of Bitcoin. Happens every single freaking time. And here's an interesting story for you too. A small group of investors spent $24.5 billion on Bitcoin in the last few months. Now, this is based on some information from the guys over at Chainalysis. So they found that when Bitcoin was worth around $54,500, a group of 1,200 investors bought 450,000 Bitcoin, which is a few percent of the entire supply, worth around $24.5 billion. So think about that. That's a lot of Bitcoin. These guys, they came in, they bought up a few percent of the supply, 1,200 investors. I mean, that's hedge funds, companies, billionaires, millionaires. These guys came in and bought heavily, over $50,000. These guys are taking a long-term strategy here. They're not day trader tourist types, right? They're here for the long-term game. These guys didn't buy at $54,500 to panic sell and capitulate at $50,000. These guys are going to be holding on until Bitcoin's worth $500,000 a piece, maybe longer. Maybe they're not planning on selling their Bitcoin at all. So again, think like the big money does. Follow the big money, see what they're doing, because they approach this market in a completely different way from the average investor. Next in the news, the New York Stock Exchange has filed to list shares of Valkyrie's Bitcoin ETF. Now this is big news because we've already seen the CBOE apply to list one of the Bitcoin ETFs that are currently under application with the SEC. Now the New York Stock Exchange, the big daddy of exchanges, has filed to list a Bitcoin ETF. Now you have to ask yourself the question, why would the New York Stock Exchange go to the trouble of going through this whole process saying, hey, look, we're going to do the paperwork, we're going to apply to list a Bitcoin ETF, if they didn't actually think a Bitcoin ETF was about to get approved? They obviously know something that most investors probably don't, which is exactly why they're applying to list a Bitcoin ETF right now. This is very interesting because I think what we're going to see this year in the USA, multiple Bitcoin ETFs will be approved. And I know it's paper Bitcoin, at least it's backed by real Bitcoin, these Bitcoin ETFs. They're not just paper contracts like the CME futures. Those are just paper junk contracts. At least the Bitcoin ETFs, they're backed by real Bitcoin. I prefer to hold my own Bitcoin, but there are a lot of people out there who don't want to hold their own Bitcoin. And we need to understand those investors, not criticize or put them down. These people want access to Bitcoin. They want exposure to Bitcoin. And they're going through the traditional brokerage account to be able to do that. So they're going to go to their TD Ameritrade account or whatever and buy some Bitcoin ETFs and hold on to them that way. It's going to be big. The US equity markets account for more than half of the world's total value in the stock markets. So bringing a Bitcoin ETF to the USA, this is going to be like lighting a freaking pile of TNT on fire. It's going to be a big explosion of liquidity coming into the market. And a lot of people are already saying that the Bitcoin ETF, when it gets approved, it's going to be the top signal for the market in the same way the CME futures were back in 2017. I don't necessarily agree with that sentiment because the futures, you have to remember, the CME futures, they're just paper junk contracts. There's no real Bitcoin required for any of that. And it's mostly people shorting. Oh, they long too, right? But it's shorting and longing. It's futures trading. It's not the same at all like an ETF, which is backed 1-for-1 by real Bitcoin. So we see investors coming in and buying that. They're getting direct exposure to the asset. And the more people come in and buy it, the more these companies need to go out and buy more Bitcoin to fill the demand for the ETFs. So I think this could actually be a major catalyst for the next major legs up to get us up to those crazy price valuations that we've seen thrown around, those numbers of $200,000 or $300,000 in ETF approval. That could be how we get there. So this is pretty exciting. I think the New York Stock Exchange could be onto something. Again, I don't think they'd be wasting their time doing this if they didn't think that an approval in the near future was likely to happen. But the USA better step up its game because yet another country is going to beat them to the punch. So 3iQ, they're planning to raise $200 million from Bitcoin ETFs Dubai listings. So 3iQ, they're a company that already has a Bitcoin ETF listed on Canadian stock exchanges. They're now doing it in Dubai as well. So the United Arab Emirates will probably be the next country to get a Bitcoin ETF. But at this point, the way America's going, it's going to be one of the last countries to get a Bitcoin ETF because everyone else is piling in. All these other countries are racing to get a Bitcoin ETF out. And seeing one come to, for example, Dubai, I mean, that's a big deal. Dubai is a massive financial center. There's a lot of money, obviously, flowing around the Middle East. Dubai's stock markets are massive. So a Bitcoin ETF on the Dubai Stock Exchange, that's bullish. That's very, very exciting. So it'll be very awesome to see that when it does happen. And that US Bitcoin ETF, it's coming. It's coming. It's just a freaking matter of when. Anyway, your question for today. Have you been buying any cryptocurrencies over the last few days? And if so, what coins have you been buying? Or maybe you're waiting for prices to go lower. Maybe you think this dip's not over. We're going down to $35,000 or something like that. Let me know down below in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching today's video and peace out till next time.